Iran wants to end this war. They've asked for a deal. They've sent signals through back channels. Middle Eastern allies have tried to broker negotiations, and Donald Trump said no. Not once, not twice, multiple times. His exact words to NBC News: Iran wants to make a deal, and I don't want to make it because the terms aren't good enough yet. 16 days of bombing, over 15,000 targets destroyed, 1,400 dead, 3.2 million displaced. The Strait of Hormuz closed, oil up 40%, and the man with the power to stop all of it just told the world he's not satisfied yet. Tonight on the Ops Room, I'm breaking down exactly what Iran offered, what Trump demanded, why he rejected it, what terms would actually end this war, and why every day he says no. The risk of a global economic catastrophe grows exponentially. This is the most important diplomatic story of the entire conflict, and almost nobody is covering it properly. Let's go. Here's what we know. 3 separate sources told Reuters, one of the most trusted news agencies on the planet, that the Trump administration has already rebuffed multiple efforts by Middle Eastern allies to start negotiations between Washington and Tehran. These weren't Iranian officials calling the White House directly. These were America's own allies, countries like Saudi Arabia, Oman, Turkey, and France, trying to open back channels, trying to get both sides to the table, trying to prevent this war from spiraling further. And every single time, Washington said no. This is extraordinary. Think about what's happening right now. The Strait of Hormuz, the waterway carrying 20% of the world's oil supply, is effectively closed. Oil prices have surged 40% in 15 days. Global shipping is paralyzed. Gulf states are being hit by Iranian missiles and drones daily. Bahrain has intercepted over 300 projectiles. Saudi Arabia is shooting down dozens of drones every day. Qatar evacuated parts of its capital city. The UAE confirmed strikes on Dubai International Airport. The entire Middle East is on fire, and America's own allies are begging Washington to talk. And Trump is saying the price isn't right yet. So, what does Trump actually want? He gave us one specific condition during the NBC interview. He said any deal must include Iran's commitment to, quote, completely abandon any nuclear ambitions. That's the floor, the absolute minimum. Total nuclear disarmament. Not a freeze, not a slowdown, not inspections with loopholes. Complete abandonment. Every centrifuge dismantled, every enrichment facility shut down, every nuclear scientist reassigned, every gram of enriched uranium surrendered or destroyed. Now, to understand how massive that demand is, you need to understand where Iran's nuclear program stands right now. Before this war began, Iran was enriching uranium to 60% purity, just a technical step below the 90% needed for a nuclear weapon. International inspectors estimated Iran had enough enriched material to build multiple nuclear devices if it chose to weaponize. Iran's nuclear infrastructure is spread across dozens of facilities, many of them buried deep underground in hardened bunkers specifically designed to survive American bombing. Israel has been striking these sites during the war. They hit an underground ballistic missile production and storage facility in Shiraz. They've targeted weapons production facilities in Tehran. But Iran's deepest nuclear sites, places like Fordow, buried under a mountain, are extremely difficult to destroy even with the most powerful conventional weapons. Some analysts argue only a nuclear weapon could guarantee destruction of Fordow. So when Trump says Iran must completely abandon nuclear ambitions, he's demanding something Iran has refused to do for over 2 decades, through sanctions, through diplomacy, through the original nuclear deal, through assassinations of nuclear scientists, through cyber attacks on centrifuges. Iran has never fully surrendered its nuclear program, and Trump is saying, that's my condition. Take it, or the bombs keep falling. But nuclear disarmament almost certainly isn't the only demand. Trump said the terms need to be very solid, but he deliberately declined to specify what else he wants. Based on everything we've seen in this war and everything Trump and his officials have said publicly, we can piece together what a very solid deal probably looks like from Washington's perspective. First, nuclear disarmament. Complete and verifiable. No ambiguity. Second, dismantlement of Iran's ballistic missile program. Israel has conducted 7,600 strikes specifically targeting missile production sites, storage bunkers, and launch facilities. The U.S. and Israel clearly want Iran's ability to build and launch ballistic missiles permanently eliminated, not reduced, eliminated. Third, cutting off all support to proxy militias, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, Iraqi militias like Kataib Hezbollah. Iran funds, arms, trains, and directs these groups across the entire Middle East. Any deal would almost certainly require Iran to completely sever these relationships. No more weapons transfers, no more funding, no more IRGC advisors embedded with proxy forces. Fourth, opening the Strait of Hormuz permanently and unconditionally. Trump said during the same interview, "We're going to be sweeping the strait very strongly, and we believe we'll be joined by other countries." He's preparing to force the strait open militarily, but a deal that guarantees free passage permanently would achieve the same objective without ongoing naval operations. Fifth, and this is the one nobody in the administration will say out loud, regime change, or at the very least, regime transformation. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu already stated publicly that Israel can create conditions for regime change in Iran. Trump has described Iran as completely decimated and totally defeated. The $10 million bounty on Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei, with the relocation offer for informants, suggests Washington wants this regime gone entirely. If those are Trump's real conditions, nuclear disarmament, missile program destruction, proxy network dismantlement, permanent strait access, and regime change, then he's not negotiating for a deal. He's negotiating for Iran's unconditional surrender. And that explains why he keeps saying no. Now let's look at this from Iran's side, because their position is equally complicated. Publicly, Iran is projecting absolute defiance. Officials insist there will be no ceasefire until U.S. and Israeli strikes stop entirely. They can't be seen negotiating from weakness. The IRGC's entire identity is built on resistance. Resistance to America, resistance to Israel, resistance to Western pressure. Accepting Trump's terms would be ideological suicide for the regime. It would mean admitting everything they've built for 47 years since the 1979 revolution was a failure. But privately, behind the scenes, Iran is clearly desperate. The Reuters report about Middle Eastern allies trying to broker talks didn't come from American sources. It came from people familiar with Iran's position. Iran is reaching out. Iran is signaling willingness. Iran wants this to stop. And the reason is obvious. They're losing. Badly. Over 15,000 targets struck inside their country. Their supreme leader is dead. His replacement might also be dead, or at minimum severely disfigured and hiding underground. Karg Island, 90% of their oil exports, has been stripped of every military defense. The Strait of Hormuz is closed, but the U.S. Navy is preparing to force it open with marine escorts and warship convoys. Their air defense network is being systematically dismantled. Their missile production facilities are being bombed faster than they can rebuild. 3.2 million of their citizens are displaced. Over 1,400 are dead. Their economy, already crippled by years of sanctions, is now being physically destroyed from the air. Iran's ambassador to Cyprus admitted Mojtaba Khamenei was wounded in the strike that killed his father. Trump says he might be dead. The Pentagon says he's disfigured. He hasn't appeared in public. The IRGC may be running the war without any supreme political authority, and the U.S. is offering $10 million and a new life in the West to anyone who betrays the leadership. Under those conditions, of course, Iran wants a deal. The question is whether anyone inside the Iranian system has the authority to accept Trump's terms. A supreme leader who may be dead can't sign a surrender document. IRGC commanders running a war on autopilot have no mandate to negotiate. And Iran's elected government, President Pezeshkian, Foreign Minister Araghchi, don't have the constitutional power to override the supreme leader on matters of war and peace. Iran may want a deal, but literally have no one authorized to make one. And every day that passes without a deal, the destruction accelerates. Trump is betting on time. His strategy is clear. Keep bombing, keep escalating, keep tightening the economic noose until Iran's terms get so desperate that they accept conditions they would never have considered before the war. He said the terms aren't good enough yet. That word yet is doing enormous strategic work. It means he's waiting for Iran to break completely. But there's a massive risk to this strategy. Every day without a deal, the Strait of Hormuz stays closed. Every day without a deal, oil prices climb higher. Every day without a deal, Gulf states absorb more missile and drone attacks. Every day without a deal, the global economy bleeds. The 40% oil price surge has already triggered inflation fears worldwide. Gas prices are climbing in America. European energy costs are spiking. Asian manufacturers dependent on Gulf oil are scrambling for alternatives. Central banks are warning about economic shocks. And then there's the Iran wild card. Trump's not yet strategy assumes Iran will eventually capitulate. But what if they don't? What if the IRGC decides, if we're going down, we're taking everyone with us? Iran has threatened to turn every U.S.-linked oil facility in the Gulf into a pile of ashes. Saudi Aramco, $2 trillion, ADNOC, Qatar Energy. If Iran unleashes everything it has against Gulf oil infrastructure, the resulting energy crisis wouldn't be a recession. It would be a depression. $200 oil, $10 gasoline, airlines grounded, global trade paralyzed. And that scenario becomes more likely, not less. Every day, Trump says no to a deal. There's also the Zelensky moment from this interview that reveals Trump's mindset. When asked about reports that the U.S. was receiving help from Ukraine to counter Iranian drones, the same Shahed drones Iran sells to Russia that Ukraine has been fighting for years, Trump dismissed it instantly. He said, "We don't need help. The last person we need help from is Zelensky." That one line tells you everything about how Trump views this war. He doesn't want partners. He doesn't want mediators. He doesn't want allies brokering deals or foreign leaders offering assistance. He wants total control. He wants to dictate the terms. He wants Iran to come to him on its knees and accept whatever conditions he sets. And until that happens, the bombs keep falling. The diplomatic situation right now is a paradox. Both sides want this war to end. Iran explicitly, the U.S. implicitly, through its stated desire for a very solid deal. But the gap between their positions is enormous. Iran wants the bombing to stop first, then negotiate. Trump wants Iran to surrender first, then he'll stop bombing. Neither side will move first. And in that gap, in that space between two positions that cannot meet, people keep dying, oil keeps rising, economies keep bleeding, and the risk of catastrophic escalation keeps growing. Saudi Arabia, Oman, Turkey, and France are still trying to mediate. But sources describe those efforts as downbeat, diplomatic language for going nowhere. Iran has floated a proposal to trade oil in Chinese yuan through the Strait of Hormuz, trying to bring China in as a protector. But that proposal threatens American dollar hegemony, which makes it even less likely Trump would accept any deal that involves Chinese leverage. The math is brutal. Trump wants unconditional surrender. Iran can't surrender unconditionally without the regime collapsing. The regime can't collapse without the IRGC either taking over completely or the country descending into civil chaos. And a country in chaos with ballistic missiles, drone factories, and proxy armies across 5 nations is more dangerous, not less, than a country with a functioning government that can sign a peace agreement. Trump said the terms aren't good enough yet. Iran says it won't negotiate under fire. The mediators are failing. The oil markets are screaming. The missiles are still flying. And somewhere in Washington, a president is waiting for better terms while the entire Middle East burns around the negotiating table that nobody is sitting at. This is the Ops Room, Day 16. The war continues because one man says the price of peace isn't high enough yet. Subscribe, hit the bell, share this video, because understanding why this war isn't ending is just as important as understanding why it started. I'll see you in the next one.